second. So welcome. This is Federal Prison Talk. I'm Sean, and I haven't done a video actually in a couple weeks. So for like a year and a half, I've been doing videos talking about prison. I guess I need a little break. But today I got Lauren with me, guys, and she's got some stories to tell you, some messages to tell the world, and she's been kind of in and out of prison. And today she's not, and she's going forward with her life. So this is Lauren. How you doing?
Hi, I'm all right. And yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. And
hopefully never again.
Yeah.
That's what I'm aiming for.
So I know I met Lauren through a guy I did time in prison with, Chris. He's been on my videos a few times, and so he introduced me to Lauren here. And from what I understand, I don't get a lot of women on my show, and I want to. It's not that I don't want to. There's just not a lot of content out there for women in prison. There's some, but we're trying to shake up the world and let them know what's really going on out there in women's prisons.
And it's been a very big shock to me to find out that there's not a lot of funding allotted to women's prisons or women prisoners as they parole, because we are the minority, and they are more focused on the males because they are 97% of the population.
I know in the feds, 10% of the population is women's prisons, and those are small prisons. It's not much. I think they've got, 80 federal prisons, and maybe 7 of them are women's. It's not a lot. The odds, the numbers go down. And then when it comes to state prisons, it's even worse, right?
Oh, yes. There are only 2 actual women's prisons now in California, and there is a smaller satellite attachment to Folsom State Prison that is for women, but only as they are getting closer to their parole date, so under 5 years. And it's sort of a reentry type setup. And then there's also a privately run prison called McFarland, which nobody wants to go to.
So that's funny you mentioned McFarland. You know the movie McFarland? Those 4 guys that were runners. One of the guys, Damasio, I did time with, and and that was his movie. He used to brag about it, but yeah, one of the runners ended up doing time in federal prison. And his name was Damasio. He's in the movie. That's why I know about McFarland.
It's funny, I've been in prison with some famous people too. The drummer from the Runaways.
Really? From the Runaways?
Yeah, Sandy West, yes.
So I know there was Joan Jett and there's Lita Ford and all, but I didn't know the drummer's name yet.
Yeah, Sandy West was the drummer. Yeah, she was at Chowchilla.
Chowchilla. See, I've met a few women from Chowchilla. Now that's the women's prison in California. That
yes. So 1 second, my dogs are busy. I have the magic dog clicker. Oh. That's something I also did while I was in prison. I was in the puppy program training dogs to be service companions or help or support animals for handicaps and people with disabilities.
Well, you did it because we had a dog program where I did time at, but you had to have a 5-year sentence or more to join in. But you had your cellmate was your dog. Is that how it worked out for you?
Yeah, pretty much.
That was a great program.
Yeah. There was two separate programs at CIW where I was housed, which is the California Institution for Women. And one of them was strictly for training service animals, and the other one was for support, like emotional and things like that. Yeah.
So maybe we could start from the beginning, like the first time you went to prison. I mean, I don't know if you want to go back to memory lane there, but if you regret it and stuff. what brought you to your first time in prison? What kind of, I mean, what kind of life were you living? At most people don't go to prison, so they say.
Right.
So why did you go to prison for the first time?
So let's I've said this before, and I absolutely mean it, that by the time I was 14 years old, I knew that I would end up in prison. I was not not a good child. I was the bad child. I was the black sheep. I never followed the rules, and I knew that I was too smart for my own good, and I experienced a lot of trauma, and that compounded with the fact that I didn't have strong parental figures in my life. Just gave me the go ahead to run amok, and being smart as I was, I did not know how to cope with my feelings, and so I numbed them with drugs, and so that has ultimately been my downfall for the majority of my life. And yeah, so I started committing crime young, and I think my first time being arrested, I was 18. My first term, I went to prison at 21.
Wow.
For started off great. I actually spent my 21st birthday in county jail.
Oh no. That's not where you're supposed to spend your 21st birthday.
No, it is not. And I that time I went to prison for identity theft and grand theft auto, because I had rented a motel under a fake ID and I had a stolen vehicle parked out front.
That's smart. Yeah, just keep it parked out front. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Well, I was young and dumb and did not think that, oh yeah, the cops are going to cruise these motels.
Oh, they do cruise motels, trust me, because
Right.
I come from the drug background too, and probation checks and sweeps, and oh, we got the wrong door, but what do I see sitting on your counter there? Yeah, I know all about that.
And so for that, I got like 2 years, 8 months, and I ended up going to fire camp.
They have a women's fire camp. I didn't know that.
Yes, they do. Women are actually the support for the male firefighters. We cut line, break line.
Yeah, you do. Which means to the world out there that don't know what that is, you're the one that you're making a road. You're getting rid of all the brush and everything, and you got chainsaws in the front and guys in the back with rakes and everything. So by the time it's like army ants going through, right? Clearing out a road.
So basically it's like all the foliage, if there's any kind of trees or anything, we're taking like thick vegetation down to the dirt 6 feet across. And we do that for hours and hours and hours all day.
Hard work, man.
It is backbreaking. I finally ended up transferring to in camp work, and worked in the kitchen as the baker, and I had a higher pay slot than most of the girls on crew. And it was just kind of a vacation for me. It wasn't hard. It wasn't scary. And I felt like, wow, that's not so bad.
Don't they pay the fire camp people with $1 an hour, $2 an hour? They get
when you're on fire. You get $1 an hour. Yeah. And that sounds like chump change to most people, but like
when you're locked up, no, that's good money. I mean,
back then 8 cents an hour was the starting in the kitchen, and you weren't even guaranteed a pay slot.
I started off at 12 cents an hour when I went to prison. I think I made it up to 40 cents an hour by the time I left, which is good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So, I that being said, I wasn't afraid to go back. I was not convinced that my life of crime was that was not a deterrent for me in any way.
It wasn't a deterrent. See, it's supposed to be. You know, I mean, they worked the
It,
system out.
it became so later.
Yeah. I mean, usually, like with me, it started with a weekend in jail, and that was supposed to wake me up. That didn't do it. Then I did 30 days. Then I did 60 days. Then I did 90 days. Then I did 6 months. But I was never going to go to prison, right? Well, by the time I hit 50, I finally went to prison. And, you know, these little, every time you go back, the judge gives you more and more time. You're supposed to learn your lesson. I think finally you did going to prison for a few years, but that was quite a journey getting there, you know?
I had to turn that off. It was distracting me.
Oh, no problem, no problem.
So getting out of prison after doing a term in a place that was really not a threat to me, I got out and went straight back to my life of crime because I, of course, did not deal with my emotions and my trauma while I was in prison, where I had the resources, you know, well, supposedly. Mental health in prison is not necessarily a guaranteed thing. And even if it is, it's not necessarily the best.
Right.
So I was out for maybe a year, a little less than a year, and caught another term. This time for drug sales. And I went to the actual hardcore prison this time, and it was not too much more of a scary thing for me, but I saw some things and I heard some things during that term that made me think that shit just got serious.
Yeah.
Like real serious. There were just things that were done. I got to see reality of what it is like in a prison where there are lifers and long-termers who are there for violent crime, and women are not segregated as the men are. We are.
You're all thrown together.
Matter of fact, back at that time, it was their goal to have 2 white, 2 black, 2 Hispanic, and 2 other in an 8-man cell at Chowchilla and Valley State Prison, which is across the street.
And I've heard of both of those prisons. Really, it's like that there.
Yes.
Wow.
And we hated it. And, you know, it's not necessarily because, you know, any of us are racist or anything like that. It's that you're more comfortable with your own kind, you know, with people you get along with your, you know, being thrown into random strangers' rooms. You don't want to be with a bunch of lifers, right? If I'm a short termer. And that was kind of something that was difficult to deal with personality wise. And so this time I had gone to VS Valley State Prison, which is across the street from Chowchilla, and that is receiving for all of the counties north of Bakersfield, and Chowchilla is receiving for all of the counties south of Bakersfield. And so basically they're like north prisons and south prisons, you know. And so I didn't know anybody when I got sent there. It was I had very few people who I knew from outside of prison, and they were all strange to me because they're, you know, the Northsiders. And I just kind of kept my head down. And I remember
so they have Northsiders in women's prisons.
Absolutely, you know, absolutely. Women will try to imitate their male counterparts as much as they can because, you know, I think everyone puts on a show to, you know, show how hard I am, you know. Yeah. So, yeah, but women don't politic like men do. It's a vast difference. But women are a lot messier.
Really?
gossiping and fighting and yes, relationships.
So is it how safe is it in a women's prison today? Or
Not,
not?
no. So after my second term, I went back for a third, and I did 4 years at Chowchilla, and
4 years of chilling. Wow.
yeah, stayed in I worked in the sewing factory, which is the highest paid slot you could get, except for joint venture, which was a real minimum wage job. Um, and I left, and that hadn't. At that point, I was like, I'm done because the personalities got worse, and I couldn't get away for longer. Um, and I told myself when I paroled that time that I was never going back. But within a year, I was on the streets again because I had relapsed, and my mother threw me out of her house, and I snapped. I basically was at the point of no return, and I did not care what happened to me at that point. And I went on a spree crime with my co-defendant, who was also in the same mind frame, and we committed 2 armed carjackings and 24 armed robberies.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, at one point he looked over at me and said, I'm gonna go until they kill me, and I said, let's ride. So
That's what your life would come to, huh?
mhm, that was all there was for me. Like, what else? What else did I have? No family, no friends. And so when we got arrested, he got arrested before I did. When I learned that we were going to be fighting this case, and I knew that already I had had a strike, possibly 2. I think one of them was silent.
Yeah, and then 3 strikes, you're a lifer, right? That's how they do it, right?
Well, yes, technically, and so I was facing a double life sentence, seeing as how I had, you know, more armed violent crimes, and I I started stockpile. I got on several different psych meds to support myself, and also to try to mitigate some of the feelings and the rats running around in my head. Um, and I started squirreling them away
Okay.
because I had an exit plan.
You had an exit plan?
I absolutely
You
did.
tell.
I had an exit plan, and my plan was that as soon as the sentence came, they dropped that L on me, that I was going out with a bang, or maybe just with a whimper.
Okay.
Um, and we sat in county and we fought our case for almost 3 years, and county is the
County.
worst.
Yeah, 3 years in county. Oh God.
Oh, it's horrible. The men have a lot more freedoms than the women do because we're such a small population, and female deputies, when you become a sheriff's deputy, you have to do 2 years in custody before you hit the streets. And so we get these fresh women who have chips on their shoulders and something to prove, and they treat us like shit.
Yeah, I'm familiar with how they. I'm familiar with those people. They got to do the 2 years. Yeah, they do
Mhm.
treat us like shit, and so they treat the women probably worse. You said because
Oh,
they with chips on their shoulder, they've been beat by some man, whatever it is that got them
mhm.
there. I can
Yep.
imagine.
So we're being re-victimized by these women, a fellow woman.
Yeah.
Um, and so just recently, actually, there was a lawsuit that was won, and people are being compensated because of the way that they strip searched us. Like they would line us up outside of in a chain link bus bay and have us strip out there, squat and cough, and they would humiliate us just for no reason. And so there's a settlement, yeah, about that. You know, it was just despicable. And so, you know, spending all that time in Linwood County Jail, which is where women are housed in Los Angeles County, was horrible. Unless you were in a working dorm, which are there's only two. You are in a cell 23 hours a day, and this is while this is pre being convicted of a crime.
Right. This is before you've been sentenced. Yeah.
You know, we would not be able, we were not allowed to shower unless we got it done during that hour 40. And if it was loud, they'd shut us down like that. No shower for anyone. Wow. And it was days, you know, it was endless like that. So I just I had checked out. I was taking a lot of Seroquel and yes. Yes. And yeah. So for 3 years, I just was counting the days until it was done.
Yeah.
And they were not trying to play ball with us. The DA was not going to give us a deal.
No deals, huh?
Yeah. And so the day before we go to pick a jury, they finally drop a deal on us. And it's, you know, 40 years for my co-defendant and 20 for me.
Wow. Man.
And I thought, I'll take it. I'll take it right now. He, on the other hand, is you know, fuck that. I'm fighting it to the box. I'm like, you can't do that to me. You have nothing to lose, but I do. You know? Hush. And it took him a day, but when they brought us back the next day, he said, all right.
He took the 40 and you took the 20?
Well, they came that morning with a better deal of 15 for me and 35 years, 8 months for him.
Yeah. What are you going to do? I mean, you take it to court and end up losing, and they got evidence against you. Yeah, you take the deal, right?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like we weren't guilty. We absolutely were. You know? If it just was the only thing that I could think of was I will be able to get out someday, and at that point it's endless. It's like that date is never going to come. It's a dark tunnel and I'll never see the light.
Yeah, it's so far away. I get it.
Yeah. So, but I convinced him by saying, you know, when I do get out, I'll be able to, you know, do stuff for you from the outside. And so he said, okay, we'll take it. And of course we couldn't separate our cases because we weren't going to tell on each other. And that's basically what's required to be tried separately is for one of you to tell on the other.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. So we take our deal, and it's quick like that. 2 weeks, I'm on the chain up to Chowchilla to do my receiving, and you know we cannot wait to get to receiving because it's fresh air. Women don't get air. We do not see sunlight in LA County. So imagine 3 years, no sunlight, no fresh air. And there were women who were there fighting their cases for 9-10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It just is sickening to me that it's cruel. Um, but yeah, so okay, we hit the yard. We're finally having sunlight and fresh air and can socialize, and receiving is quick, and they send me to CIW. Um, CIW is the oldest women's prison in California, and more it's shaped and built more like a college campus. Everything is one level. Um, it's all two-man cells, and they're older, and this is where the old lifers are housed. Leslie Van Houten, Susan Adkins,
Oh yeah.
the Dancing Girls, yes,
I
Betty
met.
Broad, and these are all people who, when they went to prison, CIW was the only prison, and they've been there for the Manson Girls for 50 some years now. But
Oh.
yeah,
Can,
and
can you describe a regular day in a women's prison for
yeah.
women out there that are watching? Some of them maybe on pretrial going to prison, but just women in general. Tell them what it's like from waking up to the end of the day, what the food's like, and where do you sit at the chow hall and all that
Mhm.
kind of stuff.
Sure. Well, I mean, it varies prison to prison, but county jail, you're locked down, or locked in a cell all day. In prison, you are a member of the ecocosm, and you're expected to work for your date, for your good time, work time. Now, in California, that means if you are a nonviolent offender, you get 50% off halftime. Or if you are a violent offender, a striker, you get 85% of your term. So you got to work for that 15% off. Um,
Is it
which
worth it? Is it worth it to work for the 15% off?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Because not only can you get a pay slot or whatever, learn something, um, I think it instills, however much we fight it, a little bit of structure into people's lives who have never had structure, or
Right.
who buck the system and buck the structure. So your door pops at 6:15 in the morning. Means doors are open. Go handle your business, shower, whatever. Breakfast. They're calling units to go to breakfast. So
And what's breakfast like? Do you remember the oatmeal every day, or what are you getting?
well, yeah, it's some kind of hot
Oatmeal.
cereal or cold cereal every day. And I don't know. I tended to never go to breakfast. I did not like to go to the chow hall at all. But if you didn't have food of your own, you go to the chow hall, get your breakfast, and pick up your box lunch at the same time. So if you didn't go to breakfast, you couldn't get a lunch.
Box lunch is what? Bologna sandwich,
Bologna sandwich or peanut
celery,
butter.
celery stick, something, whatever. That
Yes,
sounds about right.
and,
Yeah.
and a cookie.
Oh, cookie.
And an apple. I never want to see another apple or a piece of bologna as long as I live. um, yeah, and the food is horrible. It's everything you imagine. Um, Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. It depends on the cook, who is the cook at the time, and
Yeah.
what his or her level of compassion for women is. um, Fortunately for the last few years I was at CIW, we got this gentleman who was hired in there, and he did everything he could to liven up our menu, chicken and waffles. You know,
Oh,
he was a character, and he really tried to do a lot for our menu.
good.
Um, yeah. So, but yeah, basically it's one slop dish or another, and honestly, it's not shit that I would feed to my dog. Um, so I tended to avoid the chow hall as much as possible for that reason, and for one other very important reason, and that is I don't like to have my back to anyone.
Yeah.
And I've learned that that's a learned behavior from being around violent situations in women's prison where you are they'll let you know that you are not safe there. You are not safe anywhere in a women's prison. Because women are vicious and jealous and vindictive creatures.
Oh. And then you got the worst, and then you got the worst of the worst there in prison, probably. So on top of what women are normally, the way how you said. Um, what about the correctional officers? Is it more men or women, or how do they treat them?
More men than women? So correctional officers. Okay, so when you come from the county with the scum of the earth deputies treating you like you are just their whipping boy, and you get to prison and the COs are actually nice. They treat you with respect, and it's in their job description that they give the respect that they expect from you, so you can have a real conversation, and not be talked down to like a piece of shit. It's a completely different world, to have that kind of just the peace of knowing that you don't have to guard yourself every time you come into contact with a correctional officer. Some of them can still be dicks, everyone has their personality, but for the most part it's much easier.
Okay, well that's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah, yeah. And I've had some really cool housing officers over the years. I was not by any means a model prisoner because when I hit the yard, it was still no light at the end of my tunnel, and I had the fuckets. I did not care, and for years I lived like that. So I was running with the wrong people and involved in fights and drugs and hustling whatever come ups I could come across.
Well, let me ask you on this one. So as far as cigarettes go in prison, because when I was in prison, yeah, I smoked cigarettes, and
Mhm.
I was at a minimum, so it was easier to get. But where you were at, I don't know, was it $20 for a rollie, or how's that work?
Not even close. Maybe five.
Five.
Yeah. So my first and second term, actually, tobacco was still legal.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was taken out July 1st, 2005 was the last date that you were was the date that there was to be no more tobacco inside of California state prisons. And of course there was after, because people stockpiled it. I actually had a couple cans buried in the yard. And I paroled that year also a couple of months after that date. Flush. I had money in my trust account, and I had, anything that I needed just from having tobacco. Now, years later, there's smoking all over. Tobacco floods into that prison one way or another. It floods into all prisons one way or another.
Oh, yeah, it does.
The same way cell phones and drugs do. I smoked here and there. I tried not to, mostly because I didn't. I kind of wanted to quit smoking. Period.
Yeah, it's a good place to quit smoking is in prison.
Yeah, and so while I was incarcerated, my mom also quit smoking, and that kind of motivated me to not. Every once in a while, I would have a couple of rollies, but I just kind of Said, nah, I'm not interested in that. Besides, it's an expensive habit.
Yeah.
And I already had a very much more expensive habit. You know, I was a heroin addict, and I was doing enough heroin in prison to be sick. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I mean, I've heard of more people doing heroin in prison than out of, like they get to prison and their habit has increased. You know what I mean?
No, not nearly. Not nearly. That can be true for a small minority,
Okay.
but I mean, a paper, a $50 paper is like the size of the tip of your thumbnail.
Oh, that's nothing.
The
Yeah.
smear. And on the streets, my habit was, you know, 5-6 grams a week.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's a
So
big difference. So
yeah.
I didn't really see heroin at the prison I was at, but they were doing that KJ stuff that, you know what that is, that
Uh-huh.
another name for it, that it's that artificial weed stuff. What's it called?
Oh, spice.
Spice. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was big. That was big.
That's oh my goodness. I mean, I think I remember maybe 3 or 4 specific instances where I heard about somebody having spice on the yard, and nobody wanted to touch that. They could get real weed, you know. It's now personally, I don't smoke weed because I don't. It makes me it makes me socially awkward, and then I want to fight, and I already fought enough on my own,
Mm.
and yeah, losing your date enough times, you don't want to lose it anymore. You know,
So how long have you been out now?
I have been out for 2 and almost a half years.
Okay, that's
I paid
good.
my number back on New Year's Eve.
All
I
right.
got a text from my parole officer. I happened to be at the casino in San Manuel.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was
So you're off paper now too?
I'm off paper now too. I
Wow.
should have gotten off a year ago, but they were fucking with me this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's got to be a great feeling. You get off paper and everything. I got 7 months to go.
ugh. But yeah.
They,
So I've
in the
given back
feds, they
3
give you
months
3 years probation after you get
now.
out.
Yeah.
I'm almost there. I'm almost there.
Yeah. It's always a great feeling, you know, like you're like, fuck, I don't have that guy, breathing down my neck about things. I've had cool parole officers. I've paroled 4 times now, so I've had cool parole officers, and I've had parole officers that were straight bitches. You know?
Yeah, I've been through 4 of them now. The last one I had, he'd show up any time in the morning. He'd show up at 4 in the morning,
Oh
and
yeah,
hang
that's
with the
crazy.
cup in his hand. The one I got now is pretty cool, but yeah, you never know which one you're gonna get. Yeah,
But and it's like I know I was high control parole because of my crime, but I've never been shown up on without it being announced. They always call me, hey, you
oh,
coming by in the morning,
I didn't
or
have that
coming
luxury.
by, huh?
I don't
What?
have that luxury. They just
That's
show up.
crazy. That's crazy because I have every single one of my, and I've had many, because they like to trade off, rotate caseloads every 6 months. I've always gotten a courtesy call. Hey, I'll be there in 2 hours. You know,
Yeah, the best I've got is I'm 5 minutes away. Are you home?
that's, I mean, even, and you're doing well. You have a job and you are a functioning member of society. They
Yeah.
should cut you some leeway.
You would
Just
think.
like common sense. So that shows me that whoever is your parole officer is a fucking dick.
This one's a lot better than the last. The last one used to do that. This one will call, but
Yeah,
the last one I had, yeah, any hour of the night, he'd just show up. He'd do it
yeah.
about
No,
every.
that's a personal thing. That's a personal thing. Those
I
people
took
like
it that way. I took it that way. I mean, I think I finally earned a distrust after about a year, but in the beginning, Yeah, he was hardcore, but
That's insane. Like you know. So yeah. So I'm off parole, and I am still in contact with many people inside. Um, and the biggest thing now is that they're in California. They passed a law that allows men who claim that they are trans women to be housed with women prisoners.
that's right. We were just talking about that. I can't believe they're letting them.
I cannot believe it either. All started years ago with this man named Richard Massbrook, and Richard was convicted of killing and sodomizing and electrocuting a mother and daughter in their 60s and 80s.
Yeah. Okay. There's a man that should be there's a man that should be allowed in the prison. Yeah. Right.
So he sodomized and electrocuted them, kept them alive while he tortured them until they were dead. And he got convicted here in California, and he had to go to Texas to get sentenced on a separate case. And while he was there, he worked in the kitchen, and he burned his dick off with some kind of chemical in the kitchen because he wanted to be housed with women because the men were raping him and he got AIDS. So,
oh, poor guy. Like, I really feel for him.
Yeah, right. I mean, I have no sympathy. He his lawyer successfully petitioned to have him housed with women. Now, when he hit the yard at Chowchilla, the women revolted. There was a riot, and he went back to SHU. They tried to send him down to CIW, and the women there rioted, and he went back to SHU. And this was a cycle, and finally he hit the yard at CIW and stayed, and is in our general population, just has a girlfriend.
Really?
Because women are stupid and codependent, and they don't know how to be alone.
I'm not going to say women are stupid, but that woman was stupid.
Oh, it wasn't his first girlfriend there. And he had victimized the previous one, broke her arm, and so this sets a pattern for what is allowed into women's prisons and how far that line can be pushed. And now there are hundreds of men.
There's hundreds now?
Claim to be transgendered. They don't. There's no way they verify it. They do not have to have hormone replacement therapy.
They just got to decide that they are.
No, they didn't decide. They plotted. They knew that if they said, "Hey, I'm a woman in a man's body," that they would be housed with women who are in prison because they have, retaliated against their abusers. And these men are in prison for victimizing women. And now they're there to victimize these victims again.
How wrong? I mean, how wrong is, you get this woke culture. Well, they need to wake up.
Yes. I feel like it's not going to last. It definitely isn't. But for those women that are being victimized right now, for that decision to be revoked, my heart goes out to them.
Yeah.
I have a lot of sympathy and remorse for what they put us through as women, because we don't have the same voice that men do. We don't have the same political power or backing to get things accomplished as far as the administration or while I was at CIW, there was a large amount of suicides, and CIW had the highest percentage of suicides in the entire country by leaps and bounds. And one of my best friend was one of the women who committed suicide. And this was, no one was talking about it. Nobody knew.
Sorry for your loss.
Nobody was holding the housing staff accountable for not noticing that these two were fighting, and like, it was, for years it happened, and finally someone in the media got a hold of the story, and it didn't blow up like we expected it to, because that was a shocking thing, that but they made small concessions as far as the mental health services went, and I think they kind of just okey doked it until it was pushed under the rug. And yeah, there are things that happen in there that the general public would never know. Yeah, it's just I don't think the solution to putting a victim who has committed a crime into another situation where they can be victimized is the answer.
No, I agree. I agree.
Because if they take that anger out on their victim, the reason that they're in prison, they finally lash back. What do they have to lash out at if they're victimized again? Only themselves. And they do it.
Yeah. Well, I hope people out there are hearing you. I've been watching my little counter. People have been coming on and coming off, but I haven't got any comments. But after this video plays, it goes, it replays on YouTube and Facebook, and then I'll have a lot of comments on there. Hopefully,
Okay.
people, you can check them. It's the middle of Saturday afternoon, so I didn't expect a lot of people. I have 2,000 subscribers. It might sound like a lot, but in the YouTube world, it's not many. but they will be watching this, so I know about 2,000 people will watch this after it runs, and hopefully we get the message out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hope what you said today will help some women that are coming out of prison as well, or have. I get on the federal side, they're getting ready to go to prison. They're on pretrial 2, 3, 4, 5 years before they get sentenced. And in the feds, they usually let you out on a bond. And now with the no cash bail, a lot of people in state prison, they're letting them out on bail.
They're not. They're not. They're not letting women or men that have committed violent,
not violent crimes, but the non-violent.
Right. So, but that was always how it was. We would know, it doesn't matter. It didn't change anything, except they're letting people who have misdemeanors out without having to pay bail.
Yeah, I never got OR'd or anything. I always
Me either. Never.
Nothing. And crazy amounts. I mean, I remember getting like $250 of cocaine, getting pulled over, and my bill's $50,000. Are you crazy?
Yes.
For $250 of fucking coke? Come on, man. $50,000? You're kidding me. That's how it was. Yeah. I don't know if it's like that now.
Well, so in the state of California, I think they're leaning towards decriminalizing small amounts of drugs, because I think California, being the progressive state that it is, the people that understand that addiction is a disease, it's not a choice, and they're trying to find other solutions to that, as opposed to just condemning them to prison, because that doesn't work.
Yeah. It's been almost an hour since we've been talking, and there's more I want to talk about, but I got to kind of wrap it up. But I want to ask first, I want to thank you for coming on, And is there any more words of wisdom, messages, something you want to say to women out there?
Well, I mean, the same thing. If you're going to prison, you can survive it. You can mind your own business. Don't get involved in other people's business, because women are messy and they are quick to get jealous and violent. I can't tell you how many times I got into a fight over somebody else's bitch.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe we could do this again, and we could. I know we didn't get into help for women when you get out of prison, and maybe we can make that another show if you want to come back again.
I like I told you, I have friends who would be willing to.
Okay. Yeah, we can have multiple guests on here. We could do a little panel. Something like that. That'd be great.
No problem.
Great. All right, so I got to wrap it up, like I said. But Lauren, thank you so much for coming on, and I got your number now. You got mine. Feel free to keep in touch. And Chris is a good guy. Just he gets a little.
Trust me, I was born at night, but it wasn't last night.
But he's a good guy. At the end of the day, he's a good guy.
I believe so.
Yeah. All right. So thanks again, Lauren, and like I said, hopefully you come back again. This will be on the Federal Prison Talk channel. It's on my Facebook and Twitter too. But as soon as we're done here, the reruns will start. So if you want to watch it, and thank you, and we'll check for comments. And thanks again. Okay. So you have a great weekend. Have a great weekend. I know you got something going tomorrow. You're picking somebody up, right?
Oh yeah, a friend of mine is paroling tomorrow.
Yeah. So. There you go. Great. Yeah. Good. Yeah. That's great. All right. We'll talk to you later. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.